Okay. Well, welcome. Felicitation, friends. So we have Max. I'm so excited to introduce you to Max. Max is Millie's partner.
Yes.
Well, he used to have his own identity, but,
Then I got the better identity.
the better identity.
The better anonymous identity. It's actually better at like gatherings and different things with Millie. It's like I'm totally fine just being Millie's partner and floating around anonymously like that. It's actually it's a big blessing. But thanks.
So I just said your name. So
yeah, right.
So now,
that's
Max's
well,
identity is out there. It's out there.
But thanks so much for wanting to have me talk about stuff and hang out.
Well, Max is one of our crucial team members, and so he does a lot for us here. But I wanted to just kind of get to know, who are you?
Okay.
So I know you've had some really exciting things going on in your life.
Well, if you already know my name, then I guess I might as well just say other things. Yeah. We're having a lot of fun doing this project with you, Janelle, and we're working hard to make things happen and tell the story about pro-social living and pro-social actions in the world. Before that, I was a student at the University of Oregon, where I was an English major and a hammer thrower on the track and field team, which was a really fun way to spend 5 years oscillating between English classrooms and weight rooms, and I was always kind of wearing inappropriate clothing for both of those because in the English classroom I was sweaty and wearing Uncle Phil clothing, and then in the weight room I was kind of looked like an English major, so I was always a little bit disjointed in every space that I was in, but it was a great way to spend 5 years. And then I graduated. My last day of class was on March 12th, 2020, which was like a really weird week and a very scary week for a lot of people, but I had a lecture. My last classes were on that week when most lockdowns in the United States began. And then I graduate. My graduation was a week later. And so I graduated at this strange sort of juncture as kind of like in the new normal and COVID lockdowns and things of that like that. And during those first 3 months, during that phase, athletics was over, the season was canceled, classes were over. And so I, was really blessed and lucky that I didn't have to go. I wasn't a frontline worker or anything like that. I was really blessed to be able to stay home and stay safe with my quarantine crew, which was Millie's family. But in that space, I also had the opportunity to finish a book project that I had been stewing and working on for about 4 years before, most of the time I was in college. And it had gone through different iterations, but I was, during those 3 months, I was able to, finish a draft and do some editing, some revisioning, or revising, probably not enough. And at the end, in July of 2020, self-published a book called The Blue Wallpaper, which was kind of like a story about some college kids hanging out in a college town, doing interesting things and reconciling their anyway. It was a fun story.
Yeah. So what did you have to do? I mean, that's just amazing to me that you took that time and wrote a book.
It was fun. It was just such a great opportunity, and there's a lot of great tools. Moving forward, I'm definitely interested in traditional publishing, but the bar for traditional publishing is so high right now. In this day and age, the stuff that is, making it out is so high quality, and there are so many, and part of that is there's so many great people out in the world writing, just brilliant, genius people, creative minds just writing. And so, someone like me is not, quite ready for that at all, but we have some of these tools available at our disposal for self-publishing. And so if you're not quite ready for traditional publishing, but you want to finish something and make it available for your friends and family to read, you have that option. And I was able to do that, and got to put that book in the hands of a lot of my close family and friends and some other people too.
Yeah.
And have interesting conversations about that.
Well, what I admire about that is it's hard to put yourself out there.
It is a little bit, yeah. It is. And I think a story is always going to have there's all these characters in this book, and people ask like, oh, is this character this person that we know, and is this person this, and what I kind of think about it is, and this is why it's so hard to put yourself out there, is that all the characters in a book like that, it's you taking your personality and like smashing it with a hammer or something, like a mallet, and like picking up like the different shards and just putting them in the story as people, and then they're their own people talking. And so it's kind of like, when I go back and look at it now, it's like, man, like these are all the different aspects of myself kind of like talking to each other. And it's that, and that's really awesome. And I encourage people to try that, because like we all are so multifaceted and we're all so complex and different, and we have all these different personalities. It's really cool to have a space where you can let those different personalities interact with one another and meet each other and talk and solve problems. Like, it's just such a cool exercise that I would encourage, if that's something that, you know, just because we're, you know, we're forced so often to like show one side of our personality to the world. It's cool to be able to have multiple, you know, create a space for all of your personalities to commingle.
Well, and to write about things that you know, and things that are, and to be able to express yourself, to start with what you know best, which is you and your personality.
See, in theory, yeah. So it's super fun, and now we're doing this, and we're, you know, really excited. It's been, you know, a strange time, you know, to be a young person, I think, and it's certainly a strange time to be a little bit more advanced on your career, because you've been part of, like, you've had an established order of things, and then that was disrupted. In some ways, that's much harder than we're kind of entering the world of careers for the first time, and this isn't really the new normal, it's just normal. Yeah, right? Like, you had like a way of doing things and a way of existing and a way of doing your job, and had to like relearn all these new systems. You know?
Yeah, a lot of problem solving, a lot of pivoting this last year to figure out, how do we do this?
Yeah, how do we do this? How do we, you know, make it seem like, you know, people have been clinging for, and like clamoring for any sense of normalcy for a long time. And I think, you know, the best thing that we can do maybe is to try to find ways of find the opportunities and the good things that are presented by a new normal or whatever. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, anyway. There are many elements of what have changed that hopefully we can transfer over.
Certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot
like,
of
and
that.
One of them is just being a little bit more like, I know, I mean, I don't know. There's tremendous politics around masks all the time, right? But did you have a common cold this year? Maybe that's a bad example. But
this year, not as many, but working in schools, I've got kids in schools. I work in different schools. So on any given year, we do spend a lot of time in, and our youngest, it was really funny. A couple of years ago, my parents sent me some pictures from the Grandparents' Day Tea Day. And here is my son, little JP, and his friends, right? And they're hugging each other, and their faces are like, and, you know.
Isn't it strange to see images like that?
Yeah, and the kids in those realms, they're not known for their like hygiene and washing their hands, and now they are, but this was before. And then like 2 days later, he got sick, and I was like, oh, I saw the photo of when that happened.
Yeah, right.
That got sent to me.
There's all kinds of transmission going on there. There wasn't even 6 millimeters apart there.
Right. But being able to take some of those things, and other cultures have done that for a long time.
Totally,
if you're not feeling well, being open about being able to take precautions and not trying to spread it. And,
totally. It's called compassion wear. We have streetwear, we have winter wear, summer wear. In a lot of ways, you know, acknowledging that you have some little germies that you don't want to give to everybody. Putting on a mask is just a compassionate gesture when you're going out into other spaces, and just acknowledging that you're not trying to put your germs on everybody.
When I think hopefully as things change, and it's not a mandate, but that it can become something from us that we want to do for others. One of the things, you know, at the Green Lighthouse that we're really talking about is those pro-social behaviors.
Totally.
That we're in it together.
Totally.
And that being in it together is where we want to be, right?
We want to be in communities of care, mutual care and reciprocity, where you you can trust that the people that you're around care about you, but also you care so immensely about the people you're around.
Well, and so fundamental. I was a psychology major, and so I've listened to a lot of evolutionary psychology books and podcasts. And and Tony Robbins likes to say that the superpower that humans have is love. Right? That is our superpower. When you look at us, physically, we've got some, love my opposable thumbs. Thank you. I love being able to type. I love being able to walk.
Right.
But really, what has enabled us to thrive is that we take care of one another and that we can work in these organized groups to overcome challenges.
Right.
One of us as an individual can't send a rover to Mars.
Right.
That's not something, one individual can do. Working as a group, we can do such amazing things.
Yeah, incredible things. And we have that track record. And maybe what happened in, like in the example of NASA in the 1960s, or, these other crazy Herculean efforts, is that they were tied to, in a lot of ways, a single nation or a single organization or something like that. And there's counterexamples, certainly. But we're pretty good at finding a community of like-minded people, or people who look like us, or people who believe similar things. And we're really good at working together when we're in a group like that. But I think the task of the 21st century and beyond, or just moving forward, is to expand that definition of who can be in our community and who are the people that we can work with, and the people that we care about, and the people that we can work together to accomplish things, which, and one of our focuses at the Green Lighthouse is climate change and climate change awareness. Talk about an issue where we're going to need pervasive mass collective action in order to create change. It can't just be Americans in the Pacific Northwest. It can't just be, certain groups of people, subsets, demographics. We need people to understand that we're in a community, a global community. All of our destinies are intertwined right now and are actually the same destiny. And we got to work together and for mass collective change if we're gonna survive.
Well, in the book, The Survival of the Friendliest, they talk a lot about how innovation happens when people come together and can exchange ideas. And that's when we have rapid innovation. And now that we have the internet, and anyone in the world can collaborate with anybody else almost. Right. We still have some pockets where we don't have internet connectivity, but that's where we're going. That does open up the doors for this spread of ideas and this innovation like we've never seen before. And that's created opportunities like what we did, what the global scientific community did with the COVID-19 vaccine. Like massive collaboration, drawing on research that had been ongoing for decades, certainly. So drawing on that wealth of research, previous research. But then all kinds of collaboration through platforms on the internet, and sharing and collaboration to create this. It's a great example, like creating like this awesome thing for so many people. Life-saving technology, life-saving innovation, only possible through sharing and collaboration. And no one was trying to patent and make $1 billion on their COVID-19 vaccine, right? They were in the interest of making people safe and healthy. Well, and I think one thing we're really trying to show with the Green Lighthouse is that you can be a for-profit company,
right? And
do good for the world.
Right.
There's a line there. There's a balance there. I think a lot of our messaging is about balance. That we're not all or nothing. You can do good for the world and still make enough of a profit to support yourselves. We're just talking about some of these instances that we see. If a pill costs you 3 cents to make and you're going to charge somebody who needs it to live $1,000 per pill, there are some of those things that as a culture we need to look at and try to, again, going back to like what's best for people.
Yeah, what's best for people.
Now, I'm not saying that those companies should not do well and that their highly trained scientists should have a really good life, right? And should have a really good salary. And so how do we do both? How do we find a way to find that middle ground?
Totally. Well, yeah, they could have a really great, comfortable existence, while also taking care of the people around them,
right.
And there's a lot of evidence, I think, that there is in the world of business, there's a business incentive to being pro-social, right? If you're doing good in the world, that's going to come back, right? And that's going to come back in a lot of ways. Maybe some of that will show up in a dollars and cents type of way, but it's also going to show up in a lot of other maybe unexpected ways.
I think so. And I think people now, we've shifted and we want to do business with people we want to do business with.
Right.
Yeah. So now tell me, Max, I know we love to talk, but what are you most excited about in the world right now?
Well, along that line, doing business with the people you want to do business with, I think this is, I know it's sort of a buzzword, kind of like mysterious terrain right now, but I think that this is really a great possibility with the world of blockchain finance, or DeFi, decentralized finance, or DeFi, this new world. You hear about crypto and NFTs, and you hear about the blockchain and all, $69 million for a picture of a cat. It's just like really wild, outlandish sounding things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially for people of my generation.
I know, it's like, what is that?
We hear an NFT and we're like, what?
And it's like, and people are like, oh, remember that cat with a flying in a Pop-Tart, like with a rainbow behind it, like, and it's all these wild kind of outlandish things. But really, I think there's so much great potential to do business with the people you want to do business with. And what the blockchain makes possible is a type of commerce where you really are interacting just with the person, and you don't need to go to a third party like a bank or some other kind of institution to facilitate that transaction. And so you can have, when both people are talking to the blockchain, and they both are equipped to work on the blockchain, you can transmit value to that person in exchange for the service in that way. So that means that's just the kind of the basic innovation, and there's so much else to talk about. But it's just so exciting also as a young person. And I think like a lot of people my age like really feel like they missed out on like an era where real estate was really cheap, or the .com boom. Like they feel like they missed out on some of these quote unquote land grabs where really, really, making a lot of financial strides, and a lot of people my age just feel really trapped in their financial situation for great reason. We have we're under tremendous pressure with student loans and all these other factors, but we actually kind of are living in a really big moment, a transition moment, where the financial institutions are changing, and we're going to have opportunities to be a part of that if we can learn about the technology, and if we can use it in, I think, again, use it in pro-social ways. That's one of the things I'm really excited about with the Green Lighthouse, is taking some of this new technology, blockchain technology, and deploying it for human, pro-social, pro-environment causes. And I think we have great potential to really execute that well, and that'll be really different. What are you excited about?
Well, I'm excited about a lot of things, and some of the things that you're talking about, I don't know if we got quite down. And please excuse our plastic bottles. With COVID, we took out our big water jug.
I know,
and
right?
I know. So we feel a little.
Climate change is the single greatest threat, I say, as I drink this.
Well, and that's the problem with COVID. Everything's gotten.
Right, we got to figure that out.
We've got to figure that out, because we went to single use.
But there is a green leaf on this one.
So maybe that'll.
So you can feel much better about it, because there's a green leaf on it. But yeah.
So we're going to figure that out. We've been gone from home long enough that the water bottle I brought is no longer. I've already drank that one.
We're on the journey too.
Yeah. So we're trying to figure it out. But please use that as we try to figure out how to hydrate people. Talking about things like climate change, where we live traditionally, air conditioning was not standard.
Yeah.
And I know we just got air conditioning in our home this year, but this office does not have air conditioning. And here we are on August 1st. And you may see us in here. It
is a little warm.
It's a little warm.
And I do tend to perspire about everything, but yeah, it is a little bit warm.
It's definitely a little bit warm. So we're that's another one of those things for us to kind of take a hurdle. Another hurdle for us to jump over, to use a track analogy, since we've got, although we were both throwers.
Yeah, we were throwers.
Yeah.
We weren't.
Put me in a 7-foot ring and say, if you step out of this, it's a scratch.
Isn't that, what are the odds of putting two hammer throwers in the same room? And this is kind of like a 7-foot circle in a way.
We could, I
know?
don't know, but it makes me want to throw.
Yeah.
So, tell me more. So for me, I'm at this point in time of life where saving for retirement is starting to become real.
Yeah.
Because you get to this certain point, and I think a lot of these things in my life are kind of coming together. I'm really to that point where I realize if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And that translates to me to our planet. If we don't have our planet, where are we?
Right.
Where are we if we don't have a healthy planet?
Right.
And so a lot of those same concepts are coming together. But I'm definitely at the point where I'm nowhere near retirement, but now I'm at that point of like, oh yeah, 25 years can go by. I know you guys are all, for those of you watching, that can go by quickly, and I need to start saving. Now, when you talk about things like NFTs, that's a really new concept to somebody from my generation.
Totally new concept, and totally scary, because even just in the crypto ecosystem as a whole, if you watch the ticker, it's totally different than like the traditional stock market, because it's like you watch like the price of Ethereum, which is this, it's a blockchain itself, but it's also a currency. And you'll watch these prices go, like it drops like hundreds of dollars and then like goes up hundreds of dollars, and the famous Bitcoin drops tens of like, it's just like, and so it's totally scary to like think that like you're going to vest big parts of your life savings on these things which seem so tumultuous. And that's good. Like it's good to have that caution, because I think we're in this, because we're so early in this moment, right? It probably isn't going to be the thing right now, at least for this year and the next couple of years, where people should gamble away all these things on things that are so tumultuous. But it's just something to consider, that long term, this macro technology, the concept of decentralized exchange, that's going to be a thing. So just to kind of keep your attention on it, and then and just following the same kind of advice that we follow for everything. You never invest more than you can afford to lose, right? So even if it's like that's like some cool basic Warren Buffett stuff. Like you never like invest, if anything could go to zero, right? Even the Dow could go to zero, NASDAQ can go to zero. So you never do that, but just exploring and getting in this world of NFTs, getting into cryptos, and just kind of testing the waters a little bit. And I think that ultimately, in a few years, we will be in a place where people can make long-term investments, that are kind of grounded in a crypto portfolio. We'll see. Yeah.
When you make a good point, I mean, I know we were talking earlier, I know how much effort it takes for me to earn every dollar that I do.
Right.
And we always have these competing interests because, I got to feed my kids, all of those kind of life basics. But this just idea of learning about it. Because when you say crypto, I hear that a lot. Yeah, and then you hear about things like mining for crypto. And to be honest, that's not something that I have a good schema in my head for. Like, what is that, and what does that mean?
What even is that? And and I'm not gonna. I mean, maybe I actually am pretending to be like know all this stuff. And if that's how it comes across, then I'm really sorry also, because I don't want to come across as the cool crypto mansplainer, which is a total meme and trope that's already emerged in 2020, 2021 of the crypto mansplainer. I'm trying to resist that trope as much as possible, even though I probably am falling into it. It's just getting into all this vocabulary is important. The miners, my understanding with the miners, throwing this out there is just gonna cause all kinds of people to offer the really precise technical definitions of all these things. Well, that's great,
because we'll get a discussion and push our one thing that is true. A lot of times knowledge is generated through our interactions with one
Right.
another and
Right.
deepening our understanding. And one thing that we'll talk about on our podcast, and I've got another little segment that I'm going to do about things I learned the hard way.
Sweet.
And so I'm really excited about that. To get to share with people all the life lessons that I learned.
That's gonna be awesome.
Through all the kind of bumps. But we learn from one another, and we learn from this interaction. And
Right.
if somebody posts, "Oh, you didn't explain that very well. Here's
Right.
another way." But also, I know we all, different explanations sometimes hit us differently. So
Yeah.
my Cusbro, my parents adopted my cousin, and so I refer to him as my Cusbro. But I remember I was trying to explain something to him for a while, and then finally one day, he calls me up and he's like, "You got to listen to this podcast." And so I met him. We listened to this podcast together, and he looks at me and he goes, "Is this what you've been telling me all year?" And I was like, "Yes, that's what I've been trying to tell you all year."
Right.
But somehow this other podcaster just used words or used examples in
just
a
the
way
right-
that clicked with him. So I think part of what we're trying to do is not necessarily share anything that's new,
Right.
but our experience and ways of conceptualizing it, and maybe
Totally.
that'll click for somebody.
Totally, and that certainly applies to your work as a pedagogist, right? Is working with students and finding the right, sort of combination of things that'll click for people. The basic thing that's going on with mining, I guess, is that on the blockchain, these transactions are verified through existing members and people who are participating in that blockchain ecosystem. And so in order for the transaction to be verified, it needs to go through a series of authentications, and which involves people. So that's why they call these things protocols. They have to follow these protocols, and there's different types of protocols, but it's just to kind of create a language of seamlessness and just a common language for people who are participating in blockchain based transactions to be interacting on the same plane. And so so miners are are in that community, and they're helping verify these transactions so they can go seamlessly. And that's also why sometimes it's weird, like it takes time for these transactions to be verified, and it's kind of scary. Like, we're so used to this culture of instant gratification, with our credit cards and on online shopping, e-commerce. When I purchased my first NFT, you go through this complicated thing. Getting Ethereum, and then getting that ETH like lined up in a wallet, and then getting link. It's kind of a complicated thing right now still. And then you actually click buy, and then like the screen just goes like spinning wheel of death, and you're like, oh, F word. Like, did I just blow like all my ETH, on this thing? It's just gonna fail. But it's because it's going through this this process, this mining this process to verify that. But the good thing with that is that's what makes the blockchain, any blockchain based transaction, so secure and in a way like unhackable, because those procedures and those protocols are so strict. And so that's why I think people can, moving forward, will feel really secure and stable in making those types of transactions. It's kind of like now, even when I was a small child, I remember a lot of people having a lot of apprehension about putting their credit card on the internet, and now that's totally second nature. I think we're going to follow that same sort of process over the next few years, where right now it just seems totally foreign and totally scary, and gradually we'll become more comfortable with new technology, and we'll embrace it and adopt it, and really yield tremendous benefits from, I think.
Well, so tell me if I'm getting this right, because I often think and talk in analogies.
Right.
So to me, it's kind of like a lot of these Airbnbs or type things where other people have verified that this Airbnb person is not going to break in and back into their house in the middle of the night and get you, and then you've been verified by a number. So both the hosts and the visitor are verifying each other through other means. Is blockchain like a teeny bit like that?
Well, because, and what's kind of yes, but then what's interesting is that there's no third party that conducts that.
Okay.
Airbnb would be a third party.
Right.
Like Kickstarter would be a third party. Or your bank is a third party. Like these intermediaries that get in there to oversee the transaction. They try to verify both ends. When you're talking to the blockchain and you have an address, you have what's called an address, which is like your wallet where you store your stuff, store your assets or currencies, and then that by existing at that address, you're able to send those funds or send that that asset along the chain, and then the protocol is the protocol really is a series of mathematical equations that and again, I really don't want to pretend to be like the ultimate expert on this. I am actually like super novice at this, but this is just the kind of...
Sometimes I think novices who are just understanding it themselves are the best at explaining
hopefully.
Or at least kind of...
And it would be actually really cool if this had enough traction where there was enough community of people to call me an idiot about it, because that would mean there's a lot of people so... But it has to go through this series of solving really complicated math equations, and storing those transactions on a block, and then once that block fills up, it moves along, and then more transactions fill up the next block, and so you have this. That's why it's called a blockchain. It's because the information of your transaction is stored in a set of other transactions on a block, and it just is just getting longer and longer and longer, and that's why it's public, and I think ultimately we're going to go into a space where there won't be like a lot of room to lie and fake and flex and like pretend to like, I mean, everyone's transactions will be somewhat public through the technology of the blockchain, and we'll be able to actually that will have social cultural impact, I think, without being able to hide behind a Swiss bank account. I mean, like, there's all kinds of interesting things that'll fall behind that. So, hopefully, that's some kind of cool analogy. And again, like, hopefully, there's enough people watching that we get a community of people to nicely or perhaps not nicely correct any
well, we're trying to do pro
imprecisions.
socials, but we do love feedback, but there's a way to give feedback, right? That's kind,
constructive,
and constructive, and all of that. But I think my big takeaway from our discussion today and asking like what you're the most excited about is that this is something that we should pay attention to.
Right.
This is something that we should all spend a little bit of energy understanding, because it's a wave of the future. And this non-third party, but just that between people, transactions being verified, and that being public over time is what's going to basically be like your credit score or and so it's worth knowing what NFT means or knowing what crypto means, and we're not giving financial advice in any way, shape, or form. But it's
just awareness, where some, it'd be kind of like, I think it'd be like, in 1995, like thinking that it's not worth it to know a little bit about the internet, or in 1903, not thinking it's a little bit worth it to know what's going on with this guy in Detroit named Henry Ford. Like, who's that goofball in Detroit named Henry Ford in 1903? Or, I mean,
Old Nelly has done really well for me.
Right. Old Nelly's just fine, So it's just kind of like, it's always, I mean, it's just, this is I guess what I'm saying is we have this long pattern, or this long tradition of, certain people kind of being, kind of woke to what's going on with certain developments, and some people who really resist those developments. And in general, early adopters and people who are kind of just fun and kind of fun and like playfully, it can be like that. It can be like, you can call your funny uncle a crypto mansplainer, and like, because he is a crypto mansplainer, but still kind of know that long term it might be something to pay attention to.
And to do, and enjoy, and be like going to the movies, but putting a little bit into something, just a little bit. Well, and you asked me earlier, but then I kept asking you questions because I wanted to understand it just a little bit more. Because again, coming from different generations,
Yeah, right.
Obviously, it came up before we had cell phones, and and so going back to, I think one of the things that we're really kind of focusing on in the Great and Lighthouse and in our podcast is how quickly society's changing.
Yeah.
And that our brains haven't been able to keep up with like how fast we've changed. I think about how much has changed since my grandparents were children. And even in my own lifetime, it's completely different. And that's not letting us, we have to adapt really quickly. And we have to our brains don't get these automatic, these automatic updates that our phones get. Our brains don't. So we have to manually update our brains, right? And so we have to be out there learning about new things. And we have to be out there doing some resets on our thinking regularly to be able to keep up with what's going on out there.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And it also feels kind of weird because like we don't have a shortage of content in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're actually inundated and bombarded with so much content, some of which we choose to engage with, some of which we don't choose to engage with. We have both. So yeah, like encouraging people to memorize and learn like a whole new, financial system does feel kind of like an extra thing. That's why I feel like, the playfulness, kind of like the playfulness and the kind of fun, and like if you have like a funny crypto person in your friend group or family, like you can still like kind of like say it's funny, like, and like, and you can totally have that while also then simultaneously going home and then like in the 20 minutes before you go to bed, like kind of like look it up like a little bit on your own, And so I think that's kind of like how in this moment where we have like infinite content and infinite Netflix and infinite, memes, just to kind of, just engage with it in a thoughtful way, but engage with it still in like a playful way.
That's such a great suggestion about so many things in life. If we approach it as a game, or like, let's have a crypto date night,
I mean, it'd be fun.
Let's double date, and like, we're gonna learn 10 new crypto facts.
Yeah, like it's just kind of fun. Like I think that's fun because there's a seriousness and like there's a lot of like, there's just this. Some of it's not very funny, and there's a lot of not funny things. And so finding a little bit of humor and playfulness while simultaneously being thoughtful, I do think that's a good strategy.
And versus something that's on your to-do list that you have to do.
Yeah.
You might as well enjoy, like, let's learn about this.
Yeah, right.
Let's enjoy this.
You probably will process it faster that way. I mean, because it's I do think that's a better alternative than doom scrolling. Do you know what doom scrolling? You can get caught into a doom scroll and it can last a long time, and then you end up feeling really, really bad versus maybe interacting. And again, like, I mean, there's a lot of things that we actually...
more purposeful about...
purposeful and thoughtful all the time. Something a little bit funny right now, like this new burgeoning sort of like economic system, financial system. I do think there's space, just to reiterate, I do think there's space to be both thoughtful and also a little bit playful with the funny crypto uncle that you have at Zoom Thanksgiving this Thanksgiving, and maybe just make fun of him a little bit. That's what I'm suggesting you should do.
Well, I really appreciated getting to know you, Max, a little bit more, getting to hear what you're excited about. I'm excited to learn a little bit more, maybe get my wallet up.
Get a wallet.
Going.
Yeah, just get a wallet.
Just
buy some ETH. Yeah. ETH is a little bit up right now, but it's probably still going to go up. So.
Yeah, and depending on when you're watching this, but
yeah, right.
Yeah, well,
thanks so much, Janelle. This is gonna be super awesome. It's so fun talking and hanging out in our office in this undisclosed location,
and we need to get out of here and get some air, and some water, but thank you for listening, and love yourself, love others, love the planet.